Well, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says he is working with each state to ban cell phones in school. He cited concerns about depression, low academic performance, suicidal ideation, substance abuse, and radiation exposure. Watch.
Cell phones also produce electromagnetic radiation, which has been shown to do neurological damage to kids when it's around them all day, and to cause cellular damage and even cancer. So, a cell phone use and social media use on the cell phone has been directly connected with depression, with poor performance in schools, with suicidal ideation, with substance abuse, and it's the other countries that have done this. The states that are doing this have found that it is a much healthier environment when kids are not using cell phones at schools.
Mr. Secretary, you've talked
about... And the teachers loved it.
I bet.
Yeah, the parents do too.
Well, immediately, this clip on X was hit with this community note saying, oh no, cell phones do not cause cancer, and we know it. Do we have that community note? It's okay if we don't. So this is what they're doing, is collapsing a scientific debate into an absolute claim, which is far stronger, suggests that there is a negative effect of cell phone radiation than we care to admit. And in fact, the U.S. government's own National Toxicology Program conducted a $30 million study, decades long, exposing rats to cell phone type radio frequency radiation. And the results did show evidence of tumors in these rats and DNA damage. The World Health Organization classifies radio frequency as a possible human carcinogen on the same category as lead and DDT. So to say that there is absolutely no evidence is reckless and frankly ignorant. This is not settled, not by a long shot. So to walk us through what the science actually says and what gets ignored in the debates, I'm joined today by Theodora Scarato. Thank you for joining me. Oh, you're muted. Do you know that? Or maybe you didn't. Is that our fault, guys, that we can't hear her?
No, I think it's on her end. I'm not getting it from Zoom.
Okay. We can hold on. We'll hold on. Yep, that's great. Okay, now I can hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry about that.
No problem. It happens. So yeah, why don't you, I'll just give you the floor to respond to this. What do you think, and what does the science actually tell us?
Well, there are hundreds of scientists who are calling for action on this issue and have been for decades. This issue is not, in fact, it's one of the last nonpartisan issues that there is, cell phone radiation. There's the EMF scientist appeal, where you can see over 250 scientists who are saying that, in fact, the science is clear that safety is not assured. There are effects that have been documented, as you talked about, in a National Toxicology Program study, in actually laboratories all over the world that have reported not only cancer, but also impacts to the brain, to development, especially with prenatal exposure, cellular impacts, oxidative stress, and impacts to sperm, to the reproductive system, and, for example, reduced testosterone has been documented in some studies. So we have a situation, however, where the U.S. government used to be studying this issue. The EPA had a laboratory with several scientists. They were also measuring and monitoring the levels in the air from cell towers, as an example, but that was fully defunded in the 90s. So what's happened is reckless is the perfect term, because there's really been very little oversight, accountability, and transparency on this issue for decades.
I don't know if you can see community notes on X because I have the ability to rate them. But one of the things that this community note on this video, when it went viral, was it literally said, there is no evidence phone radiation causes cancer of any neurological damage, and it links to cancer.gov. And I thought, who would say, why would you say it in such a declarative way? Because you have to then go out of your way to ignore uncomfortable science. Here's the community note. I screenshot it. And, you know, it's infuriating to just say, nope, no, nothing to see here. That seems crazy.
It's a fairy tale. There's this fairy tale of cell phone safety that has been spun by the wireless industry, which attacks studies which find effects, does replications, which aren't replication studies, in order to discount, downplay when there are effects that have been reported. When I came onto this issue many decades ago, what I wanted to find was a report, a review. Like, well, where's the review by our federal government that looked at all the science and made a decision about, is it safe, is it not safe, or what level is safe? And I could not find it. That's what led me down this road 15 years ago. I guess the question I would ask you is, who do you think, like, how do we know that cell towers are safe? What agencies are involved and what kind of checking do they do?
Right.
I wonder what your thoughts are on that.
Well, I guess, we live in towns with cell phone towers, and that's anxietizing enough. But what the HHS secretary is saying, can we at least get the devices that are receiving the radiation farther away from our bodies more often? And so do we have a differentiation in those kind of studies, the towers versus the device?
Well, wireless, be it from a phone or from a tower or from your Wi-Fi router, it's all radio frequency radiation. There are a lot of different kinds of frequencies, and now we have 5G. In fact, we're on to 6G, which is being already tested in China, and the U.S., the White House put out a statement that they're going to be, supporting that as it moves forward. So all of it is non-ionizing radiation. There's also power lines, for example. But what I learned and what I published in my recently published paper in Frontiers is that there is no oversight in terms of research for, say, pre-market safety testing. Because I assumed, of course, there's pre-market safety testing before new technologies or phones come on the market. We don't have that for wireless technology. There's not even testing to see if the radiation from our phones is within the limits that we have in the government. Limits, which are from 1996, have not been updated since then. In fact, they go back even further, and they're based on studies of small animals exposed for under an hour of microwave radiation. So the limits that we have only are only designed to address overheating, because the animals, when they were overexposed to the microwaves at high levels, which of course heat, they stopped pressing a little lever for food. And that is the level that the US government limits are based on as the level of adverse effects, not on preventing cancer or neurological impacts or cellular impacts or long-term health effects that have been reported in some studies.
Oh my gosh, that's terrifying. That's terrifying. Yeah. I know, because I started my career as a writer for PC Magazine, that a lot of technology is not tested for safety. It's put out for instance, Apple had to be litigated before they would limit the levels of volume for their AirPods and their phones. They didn't have a standard based on what was healthy for a human. It had to go to court. And so, what do you think needs to happen in order to get this research?
Well, there was a bill that was put forward many years ago, which was about funding, having research institutions that would be actively working on this issue, even labeling cell phones and cellular devices so people know that, one, they emit radiation, and how to reduce exposure. Because in fact, when you take a phone, here's another fact that blew my mind when I learned about it, which is that when a phone is in body contact, touching your body, people, women put them in their bras, people put them in their pants pocket, or maybe in your shirt pocket, tight against your body. They can exceed our government limits. But we're not being informed about that. But it is actually, it's in the manuals of the cell phones, or in the settings. If you go deep in your cell phone and look at the RF exposure information, they'll say that the phone was tested at a distance from the body, not in body contact. And
That's skin to skin or one thin layer of clothing?
skin to skin or a thin layer of clothes would be about 2 millimeters. And in fact, the FCC, which is the authority with no medical biological expertise, which is in charge of this issue and has the regulatory authority, they did testing of phones at 2 millimeters and found levels that exceeded the limits which we have in the United States. And they withheld that information for years until I did a public information request, a FOIA, Freedom of Information request, and got the reports showing that the levels, the numbers which they measured, exceeded limits. Now, in other countries, they actually have post-market surveillance where they go out and they measure cell phones. What are the emissions? How about cell towers? They measure and audit cell towers to make sure that they are compliant with government limits. Whereas in the United States, we don't have that. We don't have a post-market surveillance. And in France, there's over 60 phones that have been either taken off the market or software updated because they exceeded limits or violated the regulations to some degree.
Wow. Okay. So you're saying there is a bipartisan support to get this information, to start regulating it, but why hasn't it happened then?
Well, I think there's a bipartisan support of the people who understand that cell phones, they're addictive by design, right? I mean, we know there's like a whole laundry list of reasons why cell phones and kids are not the perfect mix.
Yeah.
But also when it comes to this radiation, I've worked with communities from all over the United States and internationally. And this is not about Republican, Democrat. This is about public health, safety, transparency, accountability, and really people being informed consent. So a lot of times there'll be parents who contact us because there's a cell tower going up at their child's school and they were never notified
Oh my gosh.
that this was happening.
Yeah.
So, and children are more vulnerable.
Right. So what do you think are best practices then right now to demand accountability, maybe for one, but, just in our house, until we know for sure, since there's so much damning evidence suggesting an ill health effect?
Okay, so I'll talk about phones and also other ways to really address this. So with phones, don't put the phone near your head. Keep it at a distance. Don't sleep with your phone. These are some easy first steps.
Yeah.
Because when you sleep, the device is always radiating. A wireless device, most of them, even when they're not in use, they are emitting and pulsing. So don't sleep with it by your bed or charge it by your bed at night. Turn off things that emit wireless radiation in your home, from your phone to your Wi-Fi router. I use hardwired internet. That means that it's faster and safer, more secure, and I don't have drops with my when I'm on a Zoom, for example. And the important thing that's happening now is, in the middle of all of this, we have HHS, which is moving forward with a study on cell phone radiation in children. And then we have Congress and the FCC proposing bills that are going to fast track, streamline cell towers across the United States by eviscerating local control, local city, town, county control over where and how cell towers will be placed. So I would urge everyone to go to our website at Environmental Health Sciences, ehsciences.org, our wireless program. We have information about what's been proposed. And the House and Senate have been sent letters calling for more transparency. There needs to be more awareness of this by our lawmakers so they can have what's needed is an open conversation about this, where just the whole issue can be fully aired in the public.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. I just popped over to environmental health sciences, and I'll make sure I get on your newsletter and follow this. So thank you so much for this. It's uncomfortable to hear, but there are practical steps that we can take, and also just pay attention to where these towers are going up. So it was a pleasure to talk to you. I hope you'll come back and talk about this another time with us.
Thank you so much. I'd love to. And I'd also say that there are a lot of ways that phones can be designed to emit less radiation. So if there's incentive for that, this can be solved by R&D, by the telecom companies themselves.
Yeah, awesome. Hadn't thought of that. I wish I had thought to ask you, but thank you for bringing it up.
Thank you so much for having me.